Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our next session of Ask Masters. If someone can confirm if we are audible and visible, that will be great, and we can get started. Are we audible and visible? Okay, I assume that yes, we are audible and visible. Yes. Okay, great. So let's get started. As you all are aware, our today's session is a very important session because we are closing a financial year and we're going to begin a new financial year from tomorrow. And the GST law is here to stay. So we need to make sure that from tomorrow we are going to be 100% GST compliant like we have been so far. And who better can give us a checklist that we need to keep in mind than C.A. Shankar Narayan. Welcome, sir. Welcome to Ask Masters, and thank you for joining us at Masters India.
It's a pleasure.
Great. So just to give you all a brief introduction about sir. So basically, sir doesn't need an introduction. In the GST fraternity, he is a well-known figure. But I would still want to give a very short introduction to sir. So he is a chartered accountant and a cost management accountant as well. And he has more than 1.5 decade of experience in financial and taxation compliances in different sectors. That could be banks, service sector, manufacturing sector. And he specializes in GST, customs, and foreign trade. He's a member of multiple forums like the Governing Council and the Secretary of International Chamber of Indirect Tax Professionals, also of the Indirect Taxes Committee of Hindustan Chamber of Commerce and Madras Chamber of Commerce and Industries. He's a founder partner in GPVS and Associates, which is a Chennai-based firm, and is heading the Indirect Taxes Compliance Advisory and Litigations vertical. So, sir, it's an honor to host you at the session and to have you with us. Welcome once again.
Same here. Thank you.
Thank you. So now let's get started. To start with, what is that one thing about, or okay, what are those things about 2020-21 in the GST regime, which was a hit or which was a miss?
The year started with all of us filing the returns belatedly. So that was the starting point of that year, where we were surprisingly getting the extension from the department also subsequently. What was a hit, if you ask me, I would say more tighter controls in terms of the e-invoicing being trusted in spite of the hardship the industry had to put with. Though it is a step in the right direction, but maybe the timing was something which was a little on the aggressive side. That I would say, and that has resulted in various other domino effect in terms of compliance and GSTR 2B. These I would say are the most memorable things of 2021.
Okay. Okay. And okay, so that is on the hits part. Would you like to answer the misses part?
In terms of misses, yes, I think again going back to the extensions that were given and the late fee waivers that were given could have been for a little longer period of time, or subsequently they could have meaning extended or given some special benefit for one-time regularization, which they missed.
Okay, got it. So now that's the gone by year. Let's talk about what's going to come ahead. So, according to you, in general, which are the general compliance activities that any GST registered taxpayer should take?
The immediate thing that all the accountants should do is tonight go and reset their numbering series, which is the basic thing. From tomorrow, it will start ticking. And in GST, this assumes a lot of importance from two dimensions, I would say. One is the number of documents or the variety of documents that we tend to raise in GST. For example, the tax invoice, debit notes, credit notes are general documents. We do have some special documents, something like an advance receipt voucher, a refund voucher, or for that matter, an RCM self-invoice. Even these will have to have a series. A delivery challan should also have to have a series. And therein, if we are intending to have different types of series, for example, delivery challan for job work, I want to have a different series. Delivery challan for movement of inventory between one store to other store within the same state, which is not a supply. I want to have a different series, then all this need to be reset, as well as the 16-digit overall limit needs to be seen. So this would be the most important compliance, I would say, what we need to do tonight, so that from tomorrow morning, the billing hour, the activities that are done do not get halted because of this. The other dimension from where it is very important is GSTR1, table 13. In GST, there are pockets where we do not pay much attention at all. One such table is the poor table called GSTR1, table 13, where if you give the starting invoice number or ending invoice number, or you don't give, still the return will get through. So when something is not mandatory, we know how to get through. So we will still ignore it and go ahead. But from an audit or a audit trail perspective, we must capture the starting number of the document that were started from for this month and what is the ending number. So that from an auditor's angle, we can establish a completeness at the end of the year through that only. And from a GST departmental act perspective also, from this year, the snooze will be tightened in terms of expectation of reporting that. So that is one area where we need to be more cautious, the documentation. The other thing I think most of us would have already been aware is the LUT, RFD 11, which is to be filed, which is available from the first week of March itself for financial year 2021-22. So some of us are still under the impression that RFD 11, that is the LUT taken, is for 1 year from the date it is taken. It is not so. It is to be taken at the start of every financial year. So we have to renew it at the start of the financial year. This is the next important thing. The other key thing which is hitting the industry right across is the impact of notification number 78/2020, which is the, I call it as the Dil Mange More. So HSN, they have decided to ask more. So it is not enough. We want more. So the more than 5 crore taxpayers, 5 crore turnover taxpayers in the financial year 2021 are expected to report that 6-digit HSN. Now, when I say HSN, it includes services also. So there is an interpretation that SAC pertains to services. I don't think so. The chapter number 99 is dedicated to services. So HSN 01 to 98 will be goods. Starting with 99 chapter will be services. So for all those people whose turnover is above 5 crores, mandatory quoting of 6-digit HSN has become into vogue from 1st of April. And the second aspect is my turnover is below 5 crores. What do I do? You are still not let free. If it is B2B transactions, 4-digit HSN is mandated. So gone are the days where my turnover is less than 1.5 crores. I will not report HSN. Or my turnover is between 1.5 to 5 crores. I will report only first 2 digits. It is no more applicable, relevant from tomorrow. So minimum 4-digit in case of B2B, even if your turnover is below 5 crores, is mandatory. If it is B2C and you are a person with turnover below 5 crores, yes, you have a relief. Not to quote a HSN, you can still do it with a description. So that is what is, I would say, the most key change which has to take effect from tomorrow.
Okay, sir. So now when you were saying about these things, you mentioned about LUT, about it being from the financial year when it is supposed to be taken, for which it is applicable. There is something similar with the composition taxpayers as well. Like, though the facility of opting for the composition scheme was enabled, I think, from March 2nd or 3rd, but it is for the financial year. So is there something, now whatever has to be opted for tonight, by tonight. But then is there something which has to be done as a preliminary checks or something for composition taxpayers?
Absolutely. For composition taxpayers, I would look at them from, again, two angles. One, the ones who intend to go into composition, who are not composition dealers as of today, meaning for financial year 2021, they have not opted for composition, but they want to go for composition for 21-22. What is it that they need to do? They need to opt in. And by tonight, they have to do that. And that needs to be done by filing a CMP-02, the intention or the intimation to get into composition, which has to be done by them. And while doing that, if they were already under the normal scheme of taxation, then ITC-03, relinquishing or renouncing their input tax credit in the electronic credit ledger, should also be filed. So that is the key thing, because their inventory they might have taken in ITC. There may not be a credit ledger balance, but still they could have utilized it already. But now that there is an inventory and they are opting into composition, they are supposed to give it back by ITC 03. So this is for the first timers who are moving into composition. The second type of people I would say are the ones who are moving out of composition, who need to opt out by filing CMP 04, so that they will go under the normal category of, say, filing under section 9 rather than under section 10. For that, they need to file an ITC 01 to avail the input tax credit on their inventory. So that will also be a key check for them. So the ones who are moving into composition and the ones who are moving out of composition, for both of them, today is a key day.
So now we were supposed to opt in by today. Now see, I do not opt in by today. Do I have an option to opt in tomorrow?
If you are a registered person continuing, as per rule 3, sub rule 3 of that, states that for a financial year you need to do it before the start of the financial year. So technically you become disentitled to go into a composition from tonight. But interestingly, what happens is GST law works in one direction, GSTN portal works in the other direction, which is why we come to all this software vendors to make us somewhere in alignment with the GST portal. So GST portal might still allow it tomorrow. But if you ask me by the words of the law, by tonight you are supposed to take it, else you cannot.
Got it. Okay, so now that was one class of taxpayers, that was the composition taxpayers. Now on Jan 1st, we had this QRMP scheme that was launched. Correct. So now the QRMP scheme 3 months to kuch bhi karke chal gaya. Like people somehow did their filing of returns or using the IFF. But what is the future of it? Now, what next from next year? Are the returns getting revised, or what is it that's going to happen?
Okay, QRMP is one interesting thing. As you rightly said, the first 3 months, whether you wanted it or not, some people were forcefully either taken into QRMP or forcefully thrown out of the quarterly filing, because most of us ignored that message which came from the department in December saying that you have been defaulted into quarterly filing, including us. So what happened was, unfortunately, they made us quarterly filers. Though our turnover is below 5 crore, we wanted to be monthly filers. They forcefully made us quarterly filers. So those are the people who need to watch out, because the window is now open for them. The good thing is the window is open up to April end for them to either move into the quarterly or move out of quarterly. For example, Jan, Feb and March, you have been under the quarterly scheme. Then you want to come out of it and become a monthly filer. Now is the time you can exercise that option, so that hereafter you will become a monthly filer. Or the other way around, you didn't know that there was a scheme called QRMP and you are continuing to be a monthly filer. Now you realize that, okay, maybe it will be beneficial for me to move into QRMP. That option you can now exercise and move into QRMP. And QRMP is one very good and I would say a very MSME friendly initiative. But unfortunately, it has got too many questions to answer, which an MSME, say a person, an entrepreneur or an accountant who is employed by an MSME takes time to understand. For example, look at the number of decisions a person has to take. First, he has to decide, if my turnover is below 5 crores, then only I need to go into the decision-making path, whether I have to file quarterly or monthly. If I decide quarterly, then I need to take a next call as to whether that quarterly filing, should I opt for invoice furnishing facility or not. Though I am going to pay the tax on a quarterly basis, I can choose to file on a monthly basis the invoices. If I choose to file on a monthly basis the invoices, not as a GSTR 1, but in a method called as invoice furnishing facility, if I opt for it, then I need to make the payment on a monthly basis. So this is the next call that they have to take. So if I have to pay on a monthly basis, what should I pay? There again, you are given two options. Should I pay the 35% of the previous quarter liability, or I can decide to pay the self-assessed tax for the month? So too many decisions to make, but once a person understands it, I would say it is most beneficial for the small taxpayers, meaning the ones who are below 5 crore. As per the white paper that was given in, I think, July 2018, where the GSTN had published that 93% of the taxpayers at that point in time in GST were below 5 crore taxpayers. Let's say if we have 1.23 crore registered people, 93% of them are having a turnover below 5 crores. And the other good thing about this QRMP is that in one state, I can opt for monthly filing. For the other state, I can opt for QRMP, which again is beneficial for me because multiple state registration has become the order of the day because of the input tax credit and other requirements. So I might have a lean period in one state where I can opt for the quarterly filing. At the busy state, I can still keep it on a monthly. And every 3 months, I have an option to change also. So I think, to summarize, a very useful scheme which has been introduced, but one needs to know a little bit more, put that more effort to gain that benefit. It is not straightforward.
Got it. Okay. So when you see, I understand this QRMP scheme was introduced for small taxpayers with the idea of like the eligible ITC can be claimed by the right person in the right time. But ITC is just not about it. There will be some accounts will have to be closed, or they will be carry forward, or they'll be write off by today end of the day, or for the day to start tomorrow. So what is it? What are the things people have to keep in mind when they are considering the ITC element in GST?
ITC is one beneficial piece of GST which everybody wants to have. Even if you're a composition taxpayer, somehow people want to take ITC, though they are not eligible. So ITC, yes, contentious area. And especially sitting at the end of the financial year, there are two things I would say primary. The foremost thing is that 2019-20 financial year, given that we had the impact of Corona and the matching for the period March to August was postponed and we were allowed to do it in September 2020, I am 99% sure that most of the companies, most of the taxpayers will have mismatch in input tax credit for 1920. This is because 1920, 9th October 2019 onwards only, we had this Rule 36 of Rule 4 inserted, wherein the matching of input tax credit with 2A was made mandatory. And there was say a plus or minus 20% was allowed, then subsequently reduced to 10% from 1st of January. So what we need to understand here is this plus or minus 20% or 10% is not applicable beyond September 2020. Meaning, for the financial year 1920, you could have availed in every month filing a little extra credit. But that cannot continue after September 2020. By September 2020, we should have taken only the credits which are matched. Because of this, most of us were not working or were not able to do reconciliations by September. We all did reconciliation on a post-mortem basis after September. Made our suppliers file, but still anything filed after September by our suppliers is not eligible for us. To that extent, there will be ITC of 2019-20 which will hit our P&L, which will be one of the most important entry that accountant has to find and pass it before 31st of March 2021 to make sure that it hits the P&L as an expense. On the other hand, for 2020-21, now that 2B has also been brought into picture, the matching exercise should happen for two reasons. One, to identify whom all to follow, and two, to identify those credits which I will not be able to get at all. Then maybe take it into the P&L in 2021 March itself to hit the P&L. So this is a critical thing from an input tax credit we have to do. The other three important things I would say, which generally people tend to miss because they have an impact when the GST departmental audit happens, are the common input tax credit reversal, Rule 42 and 43 reversal. We call it as the 13th reversal. The reason being, we are supposed to do that common input tax credit, exempted turnover reversal on a monthly basis, but still it is not enough. We are supposed to do a yearly reversal in the month of April. That yearly reversal shall have to be done now. And that yearly reversal will certainly be a hit to your P&L because depends upon how much you reversed during the months. It could be an under reversal or over reversal. Accordingly, we may have to do that calculation and hit your P&L. Rule 42 and 43 reversal. The second item is a cutoff with respect to this 180 days credit with respect to Rule 37. The 180 days within which we are supposed to take input tax credit, meaning we should have made the payment to the supplier on whose invoice we have taken credit, we should have made the payment within 180 days. See whether that compliance as on this cutoff is happened. If it has not happened, reverse those input tax credit with interest. That is what Rule 37 says. That may have to be taken care by 31st March, because the statutory auditor has a responsibility to comment on the effectiveness of your current asset. If you are carrying a current asset as input tax credit, having not made the payment within 180 days, he will have to comment that this ITC is not eligible. You may become eligible subsequently when you make the payment, which again is governed by Rule 37 sub Rule 4. But as of 31st of March, you are not entitled for it.
And you
So
need
that
to
asset, exactly, that asset cannot remain as a current asset in your balance sheet. So that has to be taken care. And finally, people might be adopting two different approaches for multi-state presence units. It is either cross-charge, or they might be doing input service distributor mechanism. Whichever it is, 31st March cutoff has to be adhered to for that. Because cross-charge, you want to do a cross-charge from one unit to other unit, 31st March invoice has to be raised and reported in April. So that has to become an output tax liability in one state and input tax credit for the other. And then if you are doing ISD, accumulate your ISD credit as on 31st of March, which needs to be distributed by the GSTR 6. So these, I would say, from an input tax credit perspective, very critical 6 activities that we may have to do.
Got it. Now, when you mentioned about 1920, so today I believe is the last date to file the GSTR 9 and 9C.
Yes, we are in the midst of that filing. Yes.
Yes. So we are on that date. Now, I believe as per the Finance Act, which is out, 9C is getting eliminated. So because of the budget, what is this implication going to affect the GST audit or the GST compliance aspect as such?
Okay, I call it as the Shakespearean dilemma, to be or not to be. Whether the GST audit is going to be or not to be, I think from a taxpayer perspective, there is no relief, which is what I want to clearly convey to the taxpayers, because the reconciliation is not going. The certification by the chartered accountant or the cost accountant has only been removed. Self-certified reconciliation has to be uploaded. That is what is the amendment that has come. And even more interestingly, there is a legal entangle there because the Finance Act of 2021 has been passed and notified in the official gazette, but with a condition that the amendments pertaining to GST, which is from section 108 to 123 of the Finance Act of 2021, shall become applicable only from a date to be notified by CBIC.
So it needs to be ratified by the GST Council.
Exactly. It has already been done by the GST Council. It has been given as a recommendation, but it has to be now notified by the CBIC. So they will have to issue a notification. So what now is going to happen is CBIC, what we have seen in the past, takes their own sweet time to notify sections. Like for example, debit notes came into being only from January, though the act was passed way back in last May, so something like that. So if they delay the process further, technically they delay it beyond today. For the financial year 2021, GST audit is still applicable. They might remove it with a removal of difficulty order, for which they have the powers. And they may also go in the other direction and say, okay, let us not notify this section. 35 subsection 5 amendment, let us not notify. If they do that, GST audit in the hands of CBIC, how they are going to decide based upon various representations from both the sides. I would say representations of our pro and con, both the sides representations that have been received by them. Having said that, from a taxpayer perspective, I don't think there is any respite. In fact, the thing has become a bit tougher, I would say, because earlier you can at least say my consultant or the auditor made the mistake, or they are the ones who have not filed it properly. But no, that is not possible. It is your self-assessed return. And with in light of the amendments that are coming in this Finance Act, anything that you say self-assessed and you pay tax on it, tomorrow there is a inconsistency in your own statement. They don't even have to wait for issuing a show cause notice. They can directly come for a recovery. That is how the section is being amended, section 75 subsection 12. So bearing that in mind, I don't think GST audit, whether it is there or not, the compliance responsibility is not going anywhere. It is there.
Is there any other element in the Finance Act which is going to affect the GST when it is notified? But is there any other element?
Yeah, certainly. The other key element I would say is the refunds with respect to the taxpayers who are currently doing the export of goods with payment of IGST. Assuming that Section 16 amendment in the IGST Act gets notified, immediately what will come to effect is not everybody is entitled to do with payment of IGST exports of goods. The government is going to notify a class of assessees or class of goods or services. Those are the ones who can do with payment of IGST. So far, this is one highway route where people were easily getting the refund in a matter of days, because when you export, you need to report it in the shipping bill as with payment of IGST, pay the tax in your GST or show it with the shipping bill details. It gets matched with the ICE gate, immediately refund was getting processed. So this is going to stop the flow of refund from that perspective. The other thing that is going to happen is it is going to make the compliance more intensive, because these people, if the route of with payment of IGST refund is not going to be there available for them, they have to go for ITC refund. So the moment I say it is an ITC refund, you have to make an application, you have to do the matching and submit it to the officer, follow up with the officers. That is what is going to result in a key amendment, I would say, from this Finance Act, apart from the 75 subsection 12.
Okay, got it. Okay, so when we are talking about all of these things, there is one element which is going to happen from tomorrow, that's for sure. That's the applicability of e-invoicing. So is there anything all our taxpayers between the 550 to 100 crore bracket have to keep in mind as they start the new invoicing mechanism?
I was just thinking, how come we missed e-invoicing? So the whole conversation would not have been complete without a discussion on e-invoicing.
Great.
Luckily, they did not make it applicable for taxpayers with more than 5 crores. As the Finance Secretary said sometime in February, they made it for taxpayers with more than 50 crores. So for taxpayers more than 50 crores turnover, it is applicable from tomorrow. Few elements which I have come across where people have missed it or people have misinterpreted it, I want to clarify here. One is that the 50 crore turnover that we need to take as a threshold is not just for the previous year. It is in any of the years from the introduction of GST. So it could be 2017, 18, 18, 19 or 19, 20. Some people think that, okay, I have managed 2021 lesser than 50 crore. Now, can I say that I can, e-invoicing is not applicable for me? Had your turnover of 1920 been 52 crores, e-invoicing is applicable for you. One. Two, sir, I deal only in exempted goods. Do I have to, still my turnover is above 50 crores. Is e-invoicing applicable for me? Yes. E-invoicing is applicable, but for your bill of supply, you don't have to raise e-invoices. But you may end up in a situation where you may do a straight transaction of a service or a sale, which is taxable under GST. For that, e-invoice is still applicable. So that has to be kept in mind. And e-invoice is applicable only on B2B and export transactions. The reason I stress on export is people tend to argue that export, the other party does not have GST number. Fine, it has been amply clarified that B2B transactions and export transactions of tax invoice, debit note, credit note. These three, we are supposed to raise an e-invoice. So that e-invoice, the acknowledgement number, the 64-digit e-invoice number, all that is going to come into picture. The key thing about e-invoicing, which for the people who are entering into e-invoicing regime, I want to give a word of caution, is that a cancellation of an e-invoice can happen only within 24 hours. And there is no option to modify an e-invoice. Now, why is it a word of caution? For those people who have already been in the e-invoicing the last 6 months or the 3 months, what we have seen is there is invariably a difference between e-invoice list, which is coming from the e-invoice portal, vis-a-vis the GSTR1, which we need to file. Because, for example, marketing teams on 31st March will be more focused on raising as many invoices as possible. The invoices will be raised at the speed of the printer. But the dispatch may not happen immediately. The dispatch may happen even in May. Some of the cases, the customer might say, no, I don't want this. You please cancel that invoice. Now, the cancellation for 31st March invoice is possible because you didn't raise it as an e-invoice. But 1st April invoice, you cannot cancel beyond 2nd. You want to cancel, you can cancel it in your books of accounts, but you cannot do it in the GST portal. Now, this will result in a static data in the e-invoice portal, always telling that you have more liability than your GSTR1. So we must have a reconciliation at every point of time. Preferably, every month this reconciliation needs to be done. That is what I would say is the key thing that we need to focus on in e-invoice.
Got it. So we need to be very cautious when we are starting the new mechanism.
Absolutely. This is going to be a year of reconciliations, I would say. You will have to start with the GSTR 1 versus 3B. Because if this is going to be different, Section 75, subsection 12, department officer has the right to collect it from you. If that is not, that is one thing you have taken care. GSTR 1 versus e-invoicing portal, second reconciliation. GSTR 1 versus e-waybill portal, third reconciliation. GSTR 2A or 2B with the ITC register that you have will be the fourth reconciliation. All that, assuming that you have only one GST number. You have got multiple GST numbers, then all the GST numbers together with your financial books of accounts is the next reconciliation. I don't think we will have anything else left. Maybe 26 AS reconciliation might become applicable in this year.
Possibly. Right now, we spoke about e-invoicing being for B2B invoices. So now B2C QR code on B2C invoices was supposed to be applicable from tomorrow, but I believe it's deferred. So do you have any views on this about why is it necessary or how is it going to be beneficial? What do you think about this entire thing?
The QR code on B2C is a very intelligent step, I would say. In case of B2B, the department is on one hand able to track as to who is availing the ITC, whereas B2C is the larger area where the mischiefs tend to happen. So what they are now trying to do is bring that QR code into picture. Now, I am of the view that later on at some point of time, this QR code, they may scan and ask us to upload in some portal. So because in the, I would say the early 2019 and mid of 2019, there was a proposal to conduct a GST lottery. Not lottery under whether it is taxable under GST or not, it is a lottery on GST. What they want to do is the taxpayers who are getting a B2C invoice can just scan that QR code and upload it in the portal which is meant for them. One among the bills will be chosen for a prize in that month. But what will ultimately happen is many people will stand in queue to upload the QR codes. Now, these QR codes will convey to the department that how much is the turnover of that particular GST number in a B2C basis. So if that is going to be different from what is the B2C that they are reporting in that month, you may see notices flying to them, even department officers flying to their office and doing an inspection. So which is what I feel.
Mechanism.
Absolutely. It is a tracking mechanism which is slowly put into place. So the hotels and the large chain of stores, I'm seeing that happening already. So they are hitting the B2C, maybe eventually in 1.5 to 2 years, you will see that also coming under the GST net in a more tighter fashion.
Right. Excellent. So we have already started getting some questions in our chat, but before that, I have a few more curious questions. Probably not exactly connected to this, but something connected to what you have been doing. So I just got to read that the foreign trade policy, for which was supposed to expire today, is being extended till September. So how do you think it's going to affect the normal business?
One thing, they tried doing ROTDEP and bringing few changes from January, which in fact I would say has created more heat than light. Many of us are still not aware as to what are the list of items, what is the percentage. We are still searching for it everywhere. And luckily this MEIS and SEIS and together the foreign trade policy is not being banished from 31st March. So they're just trying to maintain the status quo, I believe. Maybe that is not the priority now. Hence, the industry would certainly breathe a huge sigh of relief. Because at least we know next 6 months we are going to continue to do this. The change, if any, that is going to come, it is going to come only from 1st October. That is a breather, I would say.
Got it. Okay. Okay. So I am done with most of my questions for this particular topic of our important points to remember for the next financial year. Is there something else you would like to add on to, sir?
Yeah, one is I think the reconciliations part I have already told you, which is the key thing. The other part that we need to be clear is that when we are doing any compliance in GST, make sure that the compliance is always tied back to your books of accounts. Any stray case of reporting or any wrong reporting can result in serious damage, which is what we need to be very serious about. One, and the amendment with respect to interest is another thing which people are taking lightly. Please go through that amendment. It has got clear riders inside it. So for example, if I am having ITC, even though I file my return belatedly, I think that, okay, fine, I don't have to pay. to that extent, meaning the output tax liability, to that extent it is covered by my ITC, I don't have to pay interest. It is true for that month return only. If you are filing a last month's invoice, which was missed out in the last month, you are filing it in the next month, even though you are going to pay it only with ITC, interest is still applicable. That is how the retrospective amendment of 50 subsection 1 has been worded. So the amendments in this Finance Act, whichever has come, please handle it carefully. Refund I have already elaborated, 7512 I have already elaborated, and this also need to be taken into perspective while doing the compliance. Be a informed taxpayer. Earlier they used to say if you know Excel, you can file tax returns. So slowly it became you should know Excel and you should know some amount of other software also. Now I would say in GST it is not like that. You know Excel, you know other software, you should also know the law in the first place. Then only the appropriate disclosures can be made in the returns, because it is not about just filling up the numbers in the returns. We are answerable for it. We can be held responsible for those numbers. Hence, caution in compliance is what I would suggest. In record keeping also.
Got it. Okay. Okay, so we have already got one question here. If any of our other audience would like to ask questions, you can post it in your chat box, which is on the right-hand side of the screen. We can pick it up. So the first question we have is, should the comparison still happen with GSTR 2A?
For this financial year, or I would say any invoices reported from 1st January 2021, you can choose not to compare 2A. But what happens typically is an invoice, let's say dated December, or I would even say November 2020, which you want to match, it can still be matched in 2B of this month. So for the financial year 2021, you can do this hybrid method of matching in 2A and 2B. But from the next financial year 21-22, you can shun GSTR 2A and go only by 2B reconciliation.
I hope your question is answered. The next one is whether e-invoice would replace e-way bill system or both will be in the work.
The e-way bill, the e-way bill has already been partially, I would say, taken away, because in the GST e-invoicing portal itself, the facility is there, whichever way in which you are raising it. When you say that I also want to raise an e-way bill for this e-invoice, it does the filling up of part A of the e-way bill. So all that a person needs to do is fill up the part B, which contains the vehicle details or the transporter details that needs to be filled up. So to that extent, I think e-way bill's burden has already been reduced. But will it go away? I don't think so, because still we are only talking about taxpayers with turnover more than 50 crores coming under e-invoicing. If the e-invoicing is going to be implemented for taxpayers above 5 crores, maybe that is the day I would say that e-way bill may give way and we will have only e-invoicing. Till that day, I don't think that can happen.
We have another question which talks about, which asks, last year there were a lot of issues heard related to the GST portal. Are you aware of any major improvements happening this year?
More than being aware, first, I'm not aware. I hope that there are major improvements, because we are still struggling in many areas where we are seeing that star rotating or the buttons not being enabled is still happening in the portal. So the basic functionalities need to be enhanced. One good thing that happened in last year is the bold move not to implement the new returns that were proposed, RET1, RET2. They were kept in abeyance first, and then I think now they have put it to rest. It is not going to see the light of the day. They have started managing things with GSTR 1, 3B, the auto-populated 3B from 2B. So I think that is the way forward. If that happens seamlessly, and the problems in 2B, which currently we are facing, for example, a bill of entry which is raised in the current month also appears in the current month 2B, I mean last month's 2B. These things are addressed in the days to come. I think the return filing will become an easy affair. But one word of caution again for the people who are getting into e-invoicing, GSTR 1 and e-invoicing are not talking to each other. Or even if they are talking, they are not talking the right language, because department has already raised, GSTN, I should say, has already raised their hands by saying that we don't think the e-invoicing portal to GSTR 1 data is seamlessly happening. There are some mistakes. That is why they have given a reset button in the GSTR 1. So don't believe what has been auto-populated by e-invoicing portal. Just click on that reset button, everything will go off. Do the GSTR 1 filing as you were doing earlier. So this is one area where I think they should immediately address, because having fed the data in one place, why should we give the same data again in GSTR1 that can be addressed? Again, that is a hope.
Let's hope for the best. Yes. So do we have any more questions? In the meantime, there was another question which we received from one of our viewers earlier. Now, when we are talking about the B2C invoice QR code on B2C invoices, their question was, will this rule be retrospectively applicable from 1st of July?
No, it will become applicable. See, now what they have done is they have postponed the date by yesterday's notification, stating that instead of 1st April, it will be 1st of July. And they have already told in November, subsequent to the November notification, they have clarified that there is no penalty provisions for this deferment till April. I think the same logic would apply for the deferment up to July also. It will not become retrospective. It will become only prospective, if and when it becomes applicable.
Great. Okay. So do we have any more questions? Okay. We'll just wait for a minute. In the meantime, I would like to inform you all that Sir has created a handbook for us, and we will be sharing the same on Masters India social media pages with the recorded version of this video. You all can view the recorded version of this video, plus download the handbook as well from the post what we have it on our social media pages. We will be posting it tonight or tomorrow morning, the latest. And yes, we spoke about how input tax credit is important. We'll be having can you share the page name here? So I will just type it for you. You can just search this on Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn. Okay, and you will be able to find the post. As we spoke that input tax credit is a very important aspect, we will be having another session on the topic of input tax credit as such, trying to talk about everything and anything connected to input tax on the 20th of April. Again, we'll be sharing emails for it, plus we'll be putting it on our social media pages. You can download the handbook from our social media pages, which name I have shared. It's called Masters India. Just type that on your Facebook search bar or Twitter or LinkedIn, and you'll be able to view the post tonight or tomorrow morning, the latest. We have another question here. Whether this GSTR 2A matching we have to do from July 2017 onwards?
$1 million question. Legal battle is around it. We are already fighting that for 2017, 18, 18, 19, and even in 1920 up to October. The simple reason being, it was envisaged with GSTR 2 in mind. GSTR 2 never was filed or was able to be filed by any of the people who are the taxpayers under GST. Hence, that was not mandatory. Section 38 even did not have any impact from that perspective. So now only, that is, I would say, after the 9th October 2019 notification making the matching mandatory. After that only we have started seeing some traction towards 2A. So the years prior to 2019-20, department can ask us to do, but which is again a thing which legally has to be won in the court. Department will always say that you should have done the matching from day one.
We hope your question is answered. Okay, so we have overshot time because the session has been so wonderful. Like it's just gone with the flow, and we have gathered so many points. If there is any question, we'll take up one last question. Otherwise, we'll wind up for the day. Okay, great. So we have already got positive remarks. Great, sir. So it's been a very informative session. I hope you also enjoyed.
Yeah. Anything on GST is.
It's been a pleasure and honor to host you. And thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully, we can have many more sessions together.
Sure.
Yes, and thank you, dear audience. You all have been a great audience. And I look forward to having you all in our next session as well. Till then, please be safe, stay at home, and take care. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.